Hey everybody, Damien with Southpaw Designs, and today I'm going to bring you some of my favorite CNC videos from over the past year. These are going to include some of my favorite projects, some of the best techniques, some materials that I've tried out, and ways to make more money with your CNC. So let's fire up the Onefinity and get to work. So I'm always on the lookout for new and fun ways for this CNC to make me more money. But you can't just slap material on here and make any old CNC project, because generic CNC projects are all over Etsy, Facebook Marketplace, and the internet in general. So I'm always on the lookout for materials and projects that are new, unique, profitable, and bring new types of value to my customers. And so today we're going to try something that I've never actually used before, and we're going to do some cutting with HDPE, which stands for high density polyethylene. Simply put, it's a high density plastic, basically what milk jugs are made of. Now, what really got me interested in trying out this ColorCore is the fact that it is multi-layer right here, as you can see. It's going to have two outer layers of one color and then an inside layer of a different one. So what that should mean for us CNC folks is that we are going to be able to make new projects that are multicolor, that are quick to produce, and that are great for outdoor use, because since it's going to be plastic, it's durable. But does it really hold up? Is it easy to work with? How affordable really is it? And is this material really worth it? So that's what we're going to check out today. I'm going to make a project using this stuff. I'm going to tell you how easy it is to work with. I'm going to tell you what problems I run into and what I really think of it. But we're just going to be making a simple shop sign to remind me to stop overthinking, something that I can keep in the shop and help me relax when I start getting stressed out, which unfortunately for me, pretty common. So with that, let's give it a shot. Now, my normal choice for hold down methods are either A, to screw the material into my spoil board, or B, to use the old CA glue and tape method, but I don't feel that either one of those are really appropriate for this. So I'm going to pull out the, I guess you'd call them oops clamps, and I'm going to use that as my hold down method. Now, one thing you might notice is that because this is plastic, it is going to have a little bit of flex in it. So you want to make sure that you hold down across the entire surface where you're going to be cutting. Now, even though I've got this larger piece, I'm only going to be cutting in this area. So I think this should do fine. All right, now that we've got the material down and we're ready to go, I've got the design done, plugged into my CNC. And in case you didn't know, I do use a Onefinity Woodworker Elite CNC. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to check them out. It's a great CNC. I've used it for probably about 3 years now, and I love it. I also use an air-cooled spindle that I got from Pone CNC. I'll put the link down in the description there if you need to check that out. And for my bits, I'm going to be using 2 bits today. The first one to get the finer details up into the corners and to get fairly tight corners, I'm going to be using this 1/8" O-flute bit. And then I'm going to do the bigger parts and the pocketing and the final cutout with this 1/4" O-flute bit. Now, these are upcut bits, so the chips actually come up instead of being pushed down into the material, because since this is plastic, there's a chance that it could melt the plastic and give us a bad result. We don't want that, so we're going to be pulling everything up. Now, one thing that I am really impressed about is how quiet it's actually cutting. I mean, that makes sense in that it's plastic and not wood, but I'm talking at almost a regular level, and I'm running into no problems whatsoever. My Apple Watch isn't even setting off the loud environment. All right, so as you can see, the letters did a great job. There's a couple of little fuzzies there that I can pick off. I'll get a little hard bristle toothbrush or something to fix that, so no worries there. You will see right here that this didn't go all the way through the red. So I've readjusted and I've gone about 2/100ths of an inch deeper. And so I'm just gonna recut this and get rid of that and clean that up. And then we're gonna switch over to the 1/4" and finish up. All right, so I did have to go back and set that lower a couple of times, more than I really feel that I should have. And one of the reasons I think that might have been the case right up here on this side is maybe I just have that clamp pressed down a little bit harder, so it's really pushing that down, which would explain that. But it's a minor thing, no big deal at all. What I really want to see is I want to take this bit off and I want to see if there's any plastic that's kind of melted to it and see how that turns out. So let's take a look there. All right, and here you can see, I don't know if it'll focus on it. Here you can see that there is no plastic melted on there whatsoever. So now let's switch over to our 1/4" bit and finish this bad boy up. Okay, so I've switched over to the 1/4" bit. It's going to take care of the inside of these letterings and do the final cutout. I always like to do my cutout last because if I do that first, then it's possible that the material could move or break away while it's doing the rest of it. So make sure that you're always cutting out your material last, whatever you're doing. Now this is also an O-flute bit, so it's still going to pull that material up, and let's finish this up. So now we'll flip it over and cut it out. I do always make sure that I'm using tabs so that the material doesn't come loose and ruin the job. Also, you'll notice there is still a little bit right here where I didn't go deep enough in that same spot, which suggests to me that I might have a little issue on my spoil board, maybe an uneven spot, but that's easily fixed. All right, so now let's take a look at our finished product. These lines are all clean. There's almost no fuzz. It's a little bit right there, but I can pick that off with my finger or, like I said, a hard bristled toothbrush. All right, now when you look down inside this lettering, there is a little bit of an uneven spot right there. Actually, that's coming off pretty well with my fingernail. So that can easily be cleaned up. Maybe you go back and do one more finishing pass on the inside, take out about another 1/100th of an inch. But even with that, that's very good, and I'm happy with that. All right, so let's summarize what we've learned. This ColorCore specifically is a 3-layer HDPE, and it's great for making signs because of the fact that it's plastic. It can be used outside. You're not going to have to worry about it wearing out like wood. There you go. So if you want to get into sign making and a different kind of revenue stream, this could be great for you. It does come in a variety of different colors and combinations. I think I've got all of them right here. There might be a couple of more that I didn't receive, but I like the red and white. It's great for stop signs and grabbing your attention. I also like the yellow and black right there. That's really good for caution signs and that kind of thing. So that's going to be a fun one to try out. Now I used O-flute bits for this and the results turned out great. As you can see, I have very little fuzz that I'm going to have to clean off to the point that it's almost non-existent. So that's really great there. Now, what are the disadvantages with using this type of material? And I found 2 distinct disadvantages. One is that it's not cheap. The 1/4" material costs about $7.50 per square foot, and the 1/2" material costs about $15 per square foot. I don't know how much market there would be for creating projects for indoor use because of the pricing, but for people who want a quality sign that is going to last for a long time, that price can easily be offset. And number 2, cleanup, not that easy. Just like regular sawdust, it puts chips everywhere. And if you're like me, you take your sawdust out and you burn it in your fire pit, or you recycle it for some other use, but you can't really do that with HDPE because of the fact that it's plastic. So you're probably going to have to collect it in a different way and dispose of it in the trash. I'm not aware of any way to recycle this stuff, but who knows? But if you can get past those 2 disadvantages and you have a customer base for this type of material, this could be a very profitable new type of project that you can bring to your customers in your area. All right, so what do I think about this stuff? I actually really like it. It's very easy to use. Cutting this stuff out was much quieter than cutting out wood. And so that's a great advantage right there. This stuff is going to be much durable for outside signage. And if you want to be able to do things with multiple colors, you can. You just have to get a type of glue that would actually not try to actually glue the materials together, but something that would actually melt the material so that the two pieces of plastic actually bond together. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any right now, but that is something that I'll look up and we'll talk about in future videos. So thanks for sticking around to the end. And since you're still here, make sure to check out this video right here, which is some of my favorite CNC projects ever. So you may have realized that I haven't been putting as much content out over the course of the past few months, but you're in luck because I'm amping everything back up. And I'm looking at turning this little side venture into a full-time content creation and woodworking business over the course of the next 12 to 36 months. So if you enjoy this type of content, especially CNC and small woodworking project content, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Well, this inlay project was supposed to be a really cool birthday present for my wife, but it turned into one of my biggest failures. So today we're going to figure out where I messed up, how to fix it, and we're going to make a really awesome inlay cutting board. So with that, let's jump in. The plug's gone to waste, but at least I can resurface the cutting board itself and reuse it. It's just going to be 1/4 of an inch thinner than it was to begin with. So make sure you stick around to the end, because after I'm done showing you how to create an inlay cutting board, I'm going to show you all of the different ways that I messed up in this particular project, and there were plenty of different places. But before that, let's actually build this thing, and let me show you how you're going to set up your files in VCarve Pro. Now, I already have my paths created, but I'll go in and I'll show you how to create it. So you're going to select the VCarve tool right here. And now that I've already got it done, I'm going to edit it. Now you'll notice that I have a flat depth of 0.25 inches. Now, depending on the project that you do, you may need to change that. Also, for this particular project, I am using a 30-degree bit, and I'm going to use a clearance tool. Now, the clearance tool that I'm going to use for this particular project is a 3/16 end mill. Now, what's going to happen with that clearance tool is it's going to go in and it's going to get all of the bigger, thicker areas and save you a lot of time. If you did the entire inlay with only a V-bit, it would take you forever because that point's going to have to hit everywhere. So it's a good idea to have a clearance tool. And on the female side of our inlay, that's really all there is to it. So let's go in and preview what's going to happen here. All right, turn that speed down a little bit, and I'll start by previewing the clearance path. Now, again, that's just going to get rid of the thicker stuff. Then I'm going to preview the actual V-bit, and that's going to create the rest of it. Speed that up a little bit. There we go. So that's what it's going to look like. Now, once we have that finished, we need to create the male side. Now, the male side is a mirror image. So you're going to need to come over here to your mirror selected objects and flip it over, because when we cut out that male side, that's going to press down into our female side. Also, we want to put a shape around it so that it will cut it out properly. If you don't put a shape around it, then it's going to try to do the female side again, and that's not what we want. So we're going to put this shape around it, and then once it's done, we're actually going to cut that out, which you'll see here in just a couple of minutes. So for this one, we are also going to have a clear and a V-carve. So let me come into that V-carve right here. Now you'll notice that I'm going to have the start depth start at 0.23 inches, and then it's going to have a flat depth of 0.1. Now this is going to cut this male end 0.23 inches deep, which is slightly less deep than the 1/4 inch on our female side. That's going to leave 0.02 inches for that glue and for any little fuzzies that we might not be able to get out of there. And we're also going to set this to 0.1 inches so that it will sit proud of the cutting board of the female side, which is going to make it easier for us to cut it off. Also, I'm still using that 3/16 end mill as a clearance tool. Let me close that, and now let's preview how we're going to do this. All right, so let's go into our preview here. First one, I'm going to preview the clearance. You notice we got all that out of the way. And again, this is why you want to use a 3/16 or a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch if it's a more intricate design, to get rid of as much of the material as you can. Then you go in with your V-carve and it will finish the job and it will give you those sharper angles. Now, once we're done, we're going to cut this piece out and press it and glue it into the female side. So with that done, let's jump to our CNC and start cutting. Oh, and here's a pro tip for you when you're setting up your stock. Go ahead and screw down a piece of wood on the left-hand side and on the bottom. And then when you're creating your project in VCarve Pro, make sure to set the orientation to the bottom left-hand corner. That way, every time you put a piece of stock in there or you change your bits, you don't have to probe the X and Y every single time. You just have to probe the Z. That'll save you a little bit of time when you're doing this. Okay, so I have made some adjustments. I've gone back and I've checked on some things and I think I know where I messed up. So I'm going to try it again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it on this smaller cutting board, which is actually going to be a gift this Christmas season. And the design that I'm going to use is going to be a little bit simpler just to make sure that I can get it working correctly. This particular design I found on Free SVG, and I'll put a link down in the description. It's a public domain website where you can download all kinds of graphics, so it's really cool. So I'd encourage you to check that out. All right, now we're going to be using 2 bits to complete this. The first one for our V-carve is going to be this simple 30-degree V-bit. And then the second one that we're going to use for clearance is this 3/16 upcut bit. Now you can use an 1/8 inch, you can use a 1/4 inch. It really just depends on what type of things you're going to be clearing out. If it's something that has really small, intricate pieces to clear out, you might want to use an 1/8 of an inch bit. But if it's something that actually has a lot of clearance, you may want to use a 1/4 of an inch. For this particular one, 3/16 I think will do the job really well. So I'm going to load up the clearance bit first, and I'm going to take care of that one. Then I'll do the actual V-carve. Now, as I said before, notice how I've already got a piece of wood down there at the bottom and over on the left-hand side. This way, once I probe my X and Y axis, I don't have to do that again when I swap out the cutting board for the plug. All I have to do is probe the Z whenever I'm changing out my bits or swapping out material, and it'll go a lot quicker. All right, you can see that we've got some little fuzzies in here. We want to get rid of those because we want it to be as smooth and clear as possible so that our plug fits right down inside of there very deep. So we're going to take a wire brush. We're going to try to clean out those fuzzies real quick. Okay, so now we're ready for our male side or our plug. I like calling it the male side just to piss some people off. But this is about 0.6 inches thick. It's also end grain, and it came with the same kit from Cutting It Close. Okay, so now that we've got everything cut out, we are ready for assembly. Now, you might notice there are still a few little fuzzies here. That shouldn't be a problem because these edges are going to be pressed into the female portion of the cutting board. Also, these edges are so narrow that I don't want to take a chance on breaking them off and ruining the project. All right, so now let's get our glue in there. Now, One mistake that I'm afraid that I made on my first attempt was I didn't get enough glue into the pocket, a mistake that I will not make again. So I'm going to make sure that there is plenty of glue so that my entire inlay is secured when I surface everything off a little later. All right, now that we have all that glue in there, we're going to press in our male side. Now you're actually going to see me make one kind of a mistake right here. All that I do is press it in and then cover it and put a weight on there. I really should have used a mallet to tap it in, because when everything is finished, you'll notice that the right side sticks up just a little bit and it will cause a problem. So now it's time to cut off our plug. Now, if you have a large bandsaw, you can cut it off that way. You can use a Japanese pull saw if you want to, although that seems like it would be torture. But I'm just going to use my CNC and surface it off. Now, you notice I'm not going all the way down because I wanted to make sure that everything turned out good. I'll make another pass and surface it down another 32nd of an inch just so I get a good finished result. I don't want to try to sand off all of that glue and all that excess. It's also at this point that I realize that I've got a little bit of a gap on the top right-hand corner where the knife is. It's very small, and it's because I didn't press the plug all the way in. So I'm just going to take a little bit of walnut sawdust and mix up some glue, and I'm going to fill that in, and you'll never be able to tell. I apologize for not giving you a good close-up where you can see the mistake, but trust me, it's there. And once we've given everything a chance to dry, let's sand it off. Use our palm router to give a nice little round over to cut that edge. Since this is so small, I'm not putting a juice groove in it. This is really going to be more for decoration than anything else. And I'm just going to use some mineral oil to finish it up and make that walnut really pop out of that maple. Oh, and I do want to send a big shout out to Ryan at Cutting It Close. He sent me these cutting board blanks to give them a try, so I will put a link to them down in the description below. The kits are great. They do come with a cutting board, a couple of different sizes, 12 by 18 or 9 by 12. They are all in grain, so that's really nice for a cutting board. And they do come with both the cutting board as well as the plug in a nice handy kit. You can also get those wire brushes and some cutting board oil to go along with it. So I'll leave that link down in the description. All right, so now we have a successful cutting board. So how did I mess up with this original one? Well, number one, I think I chose too elaborate of a design for one of my first ever real inlays. I've done a little inlay work before, but not enough to really tackle something that aggressive as one of my first projects. I should have tested it out on some scrap wood to see how it would work. Number two, when I cut and assembled my plug and pressed the plug down into the cutting board itself, I did it as one large piece. And that's not a good idea for a cutting board as ornate as that one, because some of the pockets were very deep, some of them were a little bit more shallow, and there were a couple of fuzzies left here or there. And in order for an inlay to work properly and look good, every single piece has to go as far down into that pocket as you can get it. Now, because I had several different sized pockets, the least little bit of inconsistency kept some of those pockets from being pressed in all the way. If I would have cut that plug into smaller pieces and then glued them in individually, that would have prevented a few of those plug pieces from not being seated all the way in. So if you're ever going to do anything that elaborate, make sure that you cut your plugs into smaller pieces and then glue them in individually. Number three, in my first attempt, I didn't get glue everywhere. I missed a couple of pockets, especially inside the letter P. And that piece was just straight up missing. And then finally, when I surfaced my finished cutting board, I surfaced it a little bit too deep. So instead of surfacing it just to the surface and flattening it, or maybe keeping it a little bit proud and then sanding it off, I actually went a little bit too deep, which actually cut into the pockets and revealed some holes that wouldn't have been there had I not gone about a 32nd of an inch deeper than I really should have. So did I learn a lot and have fun with this project? Hell yes, I'm going to be making inlays all the time from now on. Well, I hope you enjoyed everything, and since you're still here, make sure to check out this CNC video with some of my favorite projects of all time. Until next time. Hey, if you're getting anything good out of this video, I'd appreciate it if right now you just go down and hit that little like button, because that simple little act doesn't cost you a penny, but it helps this video more than you would ever know. What if I told you that there were products that you could make year-round that would sell year-round, even when the Christmas holiday season has wrapped up and sales slow to a crawl? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to show you a simple CNC project that you can create. In fact, I'm going to give you the files for free. But in addition to showing you how that I would make it, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I actually market and sell this particular product to keep it popular all year long. All right, stop. I almost made a mistake, and this is what I always do. For these clocks, since I'm cutting out the back of the clock and I'm cutting out the pocket to actually hold the clock and then cutting it out, it's best to actually cut it out on the back side. I've already cleaned this off and sanded it on the front, so I want to flip it over so it actually cuts it out from the back. All right, so once we have avoided that problem, let's load up our project and get started here. Now I'm using a Onefinity Woodworker Elite. I'll leave a link down in the description. Now, this is a very simple CNC project. I'm using an upcut bit, and all that I need to do to begin with is create a pocket that's about 0.6 inches deep, and this just needs to be big enough to hold my clock mechanism. And remember, this is the back of the clock. In addition, I'm going to put a hole all the way through that will be the location for the mechanism to pop out the other end. Then we just simply have a profile to cut out our clock. And that's all there is to it. This only takes about 10 minutes on your CNC. From there, we just need to cut out the tabs and sand it. I'm not going to worry about showing you the sanding. You get the idea. But I will show you that I am going to break down those rough edges and the little bits of fur that may be left over on the end of the clock once it's cut out with the CNC. I keep an old piece of sandpaper around for just that purpose. From there, we're going to move to our laser engraver. My laser engraver of choice is the WeCreate 45 watt. I love this one. There are a couple of really cool features in it. Number one, it is enclosed, which is nice for a diode laser. Number two, as you can see right here, you can actually position your design right on your workpiece because it does have a camera located in the laser that'll make sure everything lines up perfectly. So that is a huge deal for me. Now, this WeCreate is my go-to laser that I keep on my desk, and I'll put a link down in the description if you'd like to check it out. From there, we autofocus, hit start, and we're ready to go. And this is actually the longest part of the process. Takes about 45 minutes with the settings that I have on there. So that does take a little while, but it's not a lot of active work. From there, I like to use shellac on these. I will use 5 coats of shellac, and I'll use a very fine grit sandpaper between them to get that nice butter smooth finish. In fact, the last couple of coats, I'll just use a piece of a paper bag to break down that shellac and get rid of any imperfections on there. All right, once the shellac has had time to dry, then they're ready for the mechanisms. Now, the mechanisms themselves are pretty simple. They just go in the back there like that. The ones that I use are relatively inexpensive. I think they cost around $4 a piece, and I'll put a link down in the description if you need to pick some up. But you can get more higher-end mechanisms if you like, but because of the fact that these are typically going to be high school gifts, I try to keep them a little less expensive. I got about a total of about $8.50 or $9 in each one of these. And with the time and the labor that goes into it, I sell these for $50 each. Now, what's great about that is that when people buy them, they typically buy them in packs, 3, 5, 10. because they're getting them for their coaches, for maybe their seniors, for retirees, for any number of purposes. And then in addition, people will come back to me looking for plaques or for honors. Maybe it's a big hit winner on a football team, or possibly the leading scorer on a soccer team or something like that. But getting involved with booster clubs or student organizations are a great way to have that income year round and have projects that are constantly being requested. And one other variation to the clock that I'll mention that is a cool idea came from a friend who came to me when she was getting married. Instead of having a registry that all the guests would sign when they came in, Cassidy asked me to create a large clock for her that just had her name and her fiance's name, but then all of the guests signed the clock when they showed up for the wedding, and now that clock actually hangs on their wall. So that was a really cool idea for taking, again, a simple idea like a clock, but putting a unique spin on it to make it popular for more people. So with that, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did get some value out of it, I'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. That costs you absolutely nothing, but it tells me that the work that I'm putting into these is valuable. And with that, if you'd like to see some of my other favorite CNC projects, check out this video right here. So today we're going to take this barrel head that I bought for $7 and turn it into $125. Now, if you've never seen these types of barrels before, these are what are called bourbon barrels. And bourbon barrels are very easy to come by in my area. Now, if you don't have bourbon barrels in your area, you can probably still find wine barrels or other types of barrels that you can use in exactly the same way. And what I really love about using materials and styles such as this is it's not the kind of thing that you see all over the internet. It's unique, and you can be one of the only ones that are actually creating this type of stuff. So if you want to see how to take this flimsy old bourbon barrel lid that's full of soot and turn it into some really good money, stick around. Now, the first part of this is cleanup, obviously, and I like to clean it up just enough so that it looks nice and clean, but it still has the stamp on there, so it looks rustic. Well, then we need to take it apart, and you might ask, well, why are we going to take it apart if we're just going to put it back together? And the reason for that is that over time with expansion and contraction, these barrel lids can come loose. So I like to take everything apart, use a scraper and get as much of that char off there as I can, and then just simply glue it back together and seal the back. And here's how we're going to do that. Once we've cleaned up everything and we have the majority of the char gone, we are going to lay it out and just glue it back together. Now, this can be a little bit challenging, but when it's done, it should hold up forever. So whenever I'm trying to seal up something like this, my go-to is to use shellac. I like using shellac because it dries incredibly quickly, usually within 10 to 15 minutes. Only takes a couple of coats. It's natural. It doesn't smell as bad as some other things. And because shellac dries using evaporation and not that exothermic polymerization that other oils can use, shellac is less likely to spontaneously combust, so it's a little bit safer. Now, that said, shellac is dissolved, so it is very flammable, so just keep that in mind. Now it's time to glue everything back up now that we have everything sealed and it's dried. I used 3 coats of shellac to seal it up nice and solid so there's not going to be any char coming off and getting on your hands. So next, let's glue it back together. Now, when you take these apart, you can glue them back together fairly easily. Takes a little bit of work because once they come apart, they don't like to come back together. And you're going to have to clamp them up and let it set up. So the way I prefer to do it is I'll use 4 cauls to actually hold it flat, and then I'll take a 5th clamp and just clamp it right down the middle so that it gets as tight as we can. I'm going to let all that glue squeeze out. I'm not going to touch it. I'll scrape it off later on. Now, this is why I like having a laminate top, is because it's easy to get all this glue out of the way. I'm just simply going to wipe up some of it so that it dries quicker. And as soon as it dries, I keep a hand plane blade handy and I'll just scrape everything up and clean up my workspace. Now, once everything is dry, let's take it apart. I'll use that same hand plane blade to clean off some of the glue squeeze out that's dried. And then we're going to seal at the top. Now notice how I left the stamp on there. This is a Heaven Hill bourbon barrel lid. So I'm going to put about 3 more coats of shellac on the top here. Now that's going to seal it up. It's going to make it look really nice. And then also it's going to make it much easier when we take it over to our CNC, which is the next step. Now this particular student wanted a fishing type of a theme on their graduation barrel head. So I found a design online, downloaded it, and took it into VCarve Pro. To begin with, I'm going to pocket out most of the large parts, so I am using a 1/8 inch bit. For this particular design, I didn't need anything to use a 1/4 of an inch. It was just as easy to go with 1/8 of an inch. Now, once I have the major material removal done, I'm going to use a 60-degree V-bit to take care of the lettering and those fine-tuning little details. Now you'll notice that I did use an upcut bit instead of a downcut bit, so there's some burrs right there that I will just have to sand off later on because I'm going to have to sand it anyway. Now you also may notice right here at the bottom in the class of 26, the of is very low, and you'll see the last name up at the top. You see kind of the same thing there. It's because bourbon barrel lids aren't meant to be perfectly flat. Now some people might say, well, why not just use a laser engraver and laser engrave it? And you could do that. But even though I have a 32-inch laser engraver, it's not assembled and put together right now. And I found that it's just as easy to do this using your CNC, but then go back and set your Z-axis a little bit lower, usually about a 1/16 of an inch maybe, and redo those parts that are a little bit lower. So that's what I'll do here in just a couple of minutes. Now, I didn't think to film it, but you can see that the of is now in much better shape. So rest assured, I went back and did that. Now, once the design is on the barrel lid, we're almost done. Now we just need to clean it up, paint it, and seal it up for good. All right, so I'm going to give it a good once-over sanding just to get rid of the burrs and then to kind of flatten everything out just a little bit. And now I'm going to use that same shellac. I'm going to put about 3 coats of shellac on there. Now that's going to reseal everything and make the surface look really nice. And then it's also going to give us kind of a barrier when we start painting the design. For my paint, I'm just using a little craft brush and some black acrylic paint that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. All right, now you might notice for this last sanding, I'm using a little Black & Decker sander just for sanding off paint. I really don't like to use my Festool. I like to take care of it a little bit more. And then once everything's all said and done, here you go. It's nice and clean, ready for one final seal of shellac. And I am going to put on 3 more coats, and we are done. So finally, how do you price these types of projects? Well, first off, the material cost is next to nothing. $7 for an entire barrel lid. Or if you get lucky, you may be able to find an entire barrel, which you can typically buy for $75 to $100. And you might say, well, why would I need an entire barrel when all I'm going to use are the lids? And that's because these staves can also be used to create some pretty awesome projects as well. I'll put a link to some bourbon barrel stave projects that I've done that are excellent money makers that made me over $2,000 at the end of this video. So with material being $5 to $7, the amount of time on the CNC takes about 1 hour. Then you figure in about another half an hour to 45 minutes to clean up, sand, and seal. I typically will have less than 2 hours worth of work into one of these projects, which means you can sell these for $100 to $125 and clear over $50 an hour. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this type of woodworking, there's going to be another video, I believe, on this side right here. So check it out. Oh, don't forget to give me that subscription before you leave. All right, so I hope you've gotten something useful out of this video. And if you have, you might want to check out this video right here, which are some of my most successful CNC projects ever.